Jazz, Wendy Zimmerman, and we have everybody listed as pictures, names right now. I'm going to welcome Jay Spurgeon, Brian Barreto, Sergeant Curley, the officer, Roberto Vargas, Steve Owens, and I've got two yet to be named. Welcome everybody to this MAC meeting.
Right. So our callers are law enforcement. They don't have the video. So, but just so you know, I've started recording the video. I might have gotten a little notification, or recording the meeting. Sorry. So, and that's so that I can take minutes later.
Good idea.
It's a small meeting, so I've allowed you can mute and unmute yourself. It doesn't look like it's going to be too big, so we'll just police ourselves accordingly. So welcome. Okay.
So now we're going to do the call to order and the flag salute. Are we ready for a flag salute?
I have a flag.
I'm ready.
Oh yes. All right, everybody can stand up. We can pledge allegiance here.
Bring my flag. Okay.
I like that.
Okay.
I begin. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to
the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Got it.
Approval of the minutes is our next item on the agenda there. Has everybody on the MAC had a chance to review the minutes? And before I entertain a motion, is there anyone who has corrections on this?
No,
No
I don't.
corrections.
Okay, I'm looking for an approval of the agenda of the minutes from the
January.
January 15th, 2020.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of meeting of January 15, 2020.
Richard's made a motion.
I second it.
Ed second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
I'll do a roll call
Aye.
since
A
we're
roll
on
call.
Zoom.
Very
So Richard Gass,
Here,
aye.
Approval of the minute, Richard?
Scott, yes, for approval of the minutes. Scott Horn,
Yes.
Wendy Zimmerman,
Yes.
Ed Viad.
Aye.
Thank you.
aye.
Very good. Approval of the minutes is so motioned and taken care of. So we move on to the agenda review. We're talking about today's agenda. Are there any items not on the agenda that we want to add to this meeting?
No change.
Oh,
If
No
not,
changes.
I'll approve the agenda as listed and move on to our public safety reports, CHP and Sheriff's Department. Who do we have joining us on the Zoom?
We have Officer Chiamonte.
Yes, ma'am.
You want to go?
Welcome. Welcome to our MAC
Go
meeting.
ahead.
We appreciate it. Who else?
Thank you. Not a whole lot happening since last time. COVID's really, if there's any positive news, it's cut down on our residential burglaries, theft type stuff since everybody's at home. But lately we are seeing an increase in our catalytic converter thefts. We had a few. That's a vehicle part under a car in which the thieves cut it away from the car and then they resell it for a hefty profit. So obviously, if we're asking if you see 2 or 3 people standing outside a car and one of them underneath the car, give us a call so we can get out there. But not really a whole lot going on other than that.
All righty. Any questions or discussion for the officer?
I would like to mention to the officer is that I live over by Orchard Park, and you guys have been patrolling the cul-de-sac on Gerald Drive like regularly, and it's cut the drug problem down like about almost to zero. I just want to tell you I appreciate that, and the neighbors on Gerald appreciate that also. Thank you.
Wonderful. I will definitely pass that on to those people in that area. We have a lot of
Thank
new
you.
people getting off training, and they're go-getters, so that's great.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
So Ed, for clarity, I'm asking if that cul-de-sac on Gerald, is that the one that dead ends at the end of Orchard Park? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, that's
Got
the
it.
one. That's
Got it.
correct.
Thank you.
You also have Sergeant Curley from the California Highway Patrol.
Sergeant Curley.
Thank you, Officer
Okay.
Chiamonte.
All right. You guys have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Look, seeing you next
Yep.
time.
Bye-bye.
Or, I'm sorry, it's Officer Decker, right? Or-
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Just
okay.
to clarify, Sergeant Curley is not present. It's just
Right.
myself. So hello, everybody. Officer Decker here, CHP Moorpark.
Thank you, Officer Decker.
Welcome and thank you
So-
for joining us.
Okay, so just a few things to go over. I wanted to go over traffic and then our collision picture. So traffic with COVID, it obviously has been reduced. It's slowly trending back towards normal. We're starting to see more and more traffic flow. You could probably attest to that within your area there, the residential area as well as on the highways. With that being said, in reference to the 2020 collision picture for your unincorporated area, to date, we've had 3 traffic collisions, 1 non-injury and 2 minor injury traffic collisions. Those occurred, the non-injury traffic collision occurred on Jenny Drive north of Lesser Drive, and the additional 2 minor injury traffic collisions occurred. One was on Windy, just north of Gerald, and the other one was on Windy as well, approximately 7 feet just north of Gerald, and that one there was a pedestrian-involved traffic collision. A driver failing to yield to pedestrian traffic that's within a crosswalk. 21950A, the California Vehicle Code, was the cause of that collision. So with that being said, in reference to traffic concerns and complaints, we did have 2 concerns in the area. I did field a call from a resident that resides on Dorena Drive. The complaint was for that of Alice Drive due to the fact this resident is on the corner there, and the complaint was that a high-speed vehicle was failing to stop the stop sign at Bella Drive and Alice, with kids playing in the street, so on and so forth. So what I had done to attempt to resolve this issue in that area is I sent officers out 3 separate times for several hours each time. All 3 officers were there at different hours of a given day. 1 in the morning, the second officer was there around noontime, and the third officer was there during evening hours. And there were several stops made, nothing in reference to citing. 1 officer indicated no violations observed during the time they were there. So hopefully that curbed that issue with people seeing the unit in the area. I'm guessing that this boils down to several vehicles, if not just 1 vehicle that we could hold accountable for these actions. The second concern that we fielded for the area was a parking complaint. This was recent, just on the 22nd. A resident on Gerald Drive at the address of 3242 had a concern with the amount of vehicles being parked in front of his house there right off of Windy on Gerald. And these excess vehicles on the street were in relation to a convalescent home that's on the corner across the street.
Right.
At the address of 3249 Gerald, right across from this resident. So after speaking with the resident, I did go out myself. I did speak to the head charge nurse at the convalescent home, and I explained to him the concerns of the amount of people and vehicles. And these vehicles that are being parked on Gerald are that of the employees for this convalescent home. They're the nurses. They rotate out through their shifts at different times of the day. I couldn't pinpoint with this resident any specific violation that he's witnessed. These vehicles were not blocking any driveways, nothing as such. Just the fact that Gerald is so tight there when you have vehicles parked on both sides of the street, and his ability to exit his driveway and get out safely. So I made the concern known to the head charge nurse at the convalescent home, and they indicated to me that they would attempt to address it with all employees there. So hopefully that takes care of that. Aside from that, we issued 12 speeding citations for the unincorporated area. I don't have any specifics as to exactly where these were written in reference to the officer's sighting out there, but we are out and about. With that being said, moving forward, wildfire season, we all know what's been going on. Just ask everybody to stay aware and prepare. I've spent 3 weeks over the last month and a half up in Santa Cruz while we were on tactical alert, and complete devastation up there. So I did see and talk to people that did prepare, and I talked to people that didn't prepare. And if you're in an area where you're able to prepare, I'd recommend it. We've been fortunate, knock on wood, so to speak, in this area. We haven't had anything major as of yet, and hopefully it stays that way. We do have the fire burning up off of the 210 up in San Bernardino Mountains right now. I was on that fire back in '09, and that was pretty heavy devastation there. So that's the closest, that fire that's burning there now is closest that, on a large scale that's gone to us. So again, I hope it stays that way. I've spoken with Ventura County Fire, and they're all doing what they can to prepare, and hoping as well that it stays the same until we get some rain. With that being said, September is Suicide Awareness Month. I want to bring this up. Be the difference, act, or help someone obtain some help. Let's just all be aware of that. We all probably have known or have read somebody that's committed suicide, so we'll try to, one life saved is huge. So with that being said, I'll end it with general traffic safety warning. Please drive safe, watch your speeds. We all make mistakes. Speeds get away from us all when we're driving. It happens. And please stay off electronic devices. Pay attention to the roadway, pass the message along. Keep the cell phones for when you're out of the car, when the vehicle's stopped in and parked. So with that being said, hopefully I covered everything for you all. And if you have any questions,
let's throw it open to the MAC members and see if there's anything they want to discuss, because we always like to dig into the little details of our community.
Yeah, we did have chaos with suicide when the guy wanted to jump off the Borchard Bridge. It backed up the entire Newbury Park, and no matter which way I tried to get around that traffic, it was impossible. So I appreciate that reminder. I have a question. Is the house with the kids that are playing in the street, are the kids playing on Alice or are they playing on Dorena?
on both streets. The concern
streets.
was that on Alice, but it's the resident on the corner, so they play on that corner.
Okay, that's not an area anybody should let their kids play in, because Alice is one of only two ways to get into our side of the community in Casa Conejo. It's just really idiotic to let any kid play in the street in that particular zone, because we have such limited ingress and egress to the entire community. It's just really foolishness on the part of anyone who lets their kids play in the street there.
I agree with that, but I can't tell the resident to do otherwise. That's the parent's discretion, but it was voiced, and it obviously is a concern. But when the kids have nowhere else to go, and that is their residence, then I attempted to address the concern, and I understand where this resident's coming from. Unfortunately, it is in an area with traffic, and can only do so much. So.
Okay, well, I'm glad you let them know, and so that they understand more clearly that, there's only two ways that people can go in and out of Casa Conejo and our back community of Fox Meadows. One of them is Alice, and the other is Bella. And it's just, there's no way for anybody to really see kids in the street much in time, because you come down from Wendy and make a right turn on to Alice or whatever. They're just not that many feet from the corner, so I appreciate that you tried to discourage them from allowing their kids, and that would put liability towards the homeowners if something happens to those kids, because even a car that's going at an appropriate speed of about 25 for a residential area may not see those kids in time.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Officer Decker at this point?
No comments from this side.
No comment. Good
Thank you,
job.
Officer Decker. It's been a pleasure having you with us on the Zoom, our first MAC Zoom meeting. Trust next time, if we have to do this, you'll be able to figure out a way to see your smiling face on the screen. We would appreciate that in the future.
Okay. I'll try to get something set up. Unfortunately, we don't have the state equipment that we have here is fairly dated, so I'll see what I can do to get something up so you can all see us.
Hopefully we won't be on Zoom forever.
Be nice.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other of our law enforcement people to address anything?
That's it.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the item number 6, COVID-19 update from the Ventura County Public Health Director, Roberto Vargas. Roberto, are you there? Rigoberto, my apologies. Rigoberto Vargas from Public Health.
Yes.
Join us, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Scott, and thank you for the invitation, Supervisor Parks, Denise. So I thought I'd cover just a few things. I'm mainly here to share information and entertain any questions or things that we can look into for you. So again, I appreciate the invitation. So I'm planning to just give a quick recap on the governor's new blueprint for what he calls a blueprint for a safer economy, reopening tier system. Tell you how we're trending as a county, and then that I in particular touch on give an update on schools and also on Halloween. So that's kind of what I have planned. But again, this is for you. So let me know what else you would like for me to cover. So how does that sound?
Sounds good, Rigoberto. Do we have access to his image?
We don't. I'm often on the road, and so I logged in only to be able to do the voice. But certainly in the future, and as someone said, hopefully, Zoom meetings won't be the case for all the time moving forward, but at least for the foreseeable future. But so yeah, for not for today.
Okay.
So just kind of picture a nice, handsome young man.
Rigoberto, just speak loudly into your phone. Initially, your sound volume wasn't very good on my end, so I'm going to ask you to use your big boy voice there for me.
Got it. All right. Sounds good. Thanks again. So yeah, I think most of you are familiar, so I won't go too much into detail. So, but do ask me any questions that I may be able to answer with regard to the state's plan that we're in alignment to or with here locally as a county, which calls for certain sectors to be open and closed based on the what they call a tier system. There's 4 by color and by number, a system of where counties based on metrics, where one is on which tier, and then that dictates which sectors can open and to what extent. So unfortunately, as I think most of you know, we're in the first tier, which corresponds to purple. And interestingly enough, probably one of the few times that red is good, talking about the officer's input on safety and such, his report. Usually we associate the red with not wanting to be into that color. In this case, it's a good thing for us. We want to move into the red tier. That's tier number 2. That would allow for additional businesses in our community to open. We know that this has not only been taken in a health toll on our community, but very much so an economic toll and mental health and physical toll all around, affected so many people. And so we do want and support for businesses to open in a phased, safe approach. And so moving into the red tier would allow for that. I think it mainly would impact schools. Schools would be able to open, and it would be up to each school district to decide to open 2 weeks after we enter the red tier. And then another significant impact would be to those businesses that with the last state order were allowed to only operate outdoors, so such as restaurants and a few other sectors would then be allowed to operate now indoors, albeit at a reduced capacity, such as 50% or 25%, based on or specifically to a sector. And then movement within tiers would allow for additional capacity opening, but it's all in a phased approach. So that's what that's the goal, is to move from tier to tier. You can't jump from say tier 1 to tier 3, although we would love to be able to do that. And in fact, one of our metrics would if the guidelines would have been set differently, we would be able to move into tier 3, and that's our positivity rate. We're doing so well that would correspond with us being moving into the tier 3, but there's two things. We can only move in a sequence event one tier to the other, and more importantly, that's keeping us in tier 1 is that not only your positivity rate needs to be at a certain level, which we're fully meeting, but also, and the main concern is our case rate. That's the number of cases per resident. And that number, we're falling just a bit short. We're so close. The goal is 7 cases per 100,000 resident. That roughly translates to about 60 cases as a county our size. And we're really around that number. We almost hit it last week. And so this week we're trending to still be having a good chance to meet that number. And if we do, then we would just need to meet it one more week, and then we'd be officially in the next tier, which again is red and allows for some businesses to start reopening. And then well, not more importantly, but just as importantly, for schools to have the ability to reopen for in-person instruction. And so we're looking forward to that movement. And so again, I mentioned that we're trending very well. I want to commend, your MAC here, your zip code of I believe it's 91320. You guys have been doing just outstanding work as a community. Your numbers have been just stellar. Your case rate is averaging around 2. Clearly well below the county average of just being over 7. And so, you're doing very well. Continue to do all that you're doing as a community, to keep the numbers down, not only for your immediate community, but your numbers also impact the overall county average. So thank you and kudos to you guys for having those good metrics. Overall, the supervisors district here, the other zip codes in the Conejo Valley area are also doing very well, but yours in particular. So any questions before I touch on schools and Halloween?
I have a question. I don't know where it fits into your plans, but I thought door-to-door salespeople were not allowed at this time, and people are starting to bang on my door and be really rude about it when I won't answer them.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that question. Actually, there's pretty much only two types of door-to-door canvassing or approaching that can take place. That's census workers and also elected officials or those seeking elected office. We are making that exemption and allowing for in a safe manner, which means they need to be wearing a mask and still maintaining social distance. But they're about the only ones that can do some direct approaching of the door. Others, such as salespeople, are really not allowed, and if anything, they would need to just leave such a pamphlet or sales flyer or what have you on the doorstep and not make any direct contact with the individual. So as a resident, you can report that to COVID compliance here at the county, and we could, if we get the information, if we happen to know the business name, for example, we can follow up on that.
Yeah, Verizon is being horrible about that. They're being super obnoxious. I don't want Verizon, and I've told other salespeople to go away. I did my census like a good gal. I'm hoping everybody in Ventura County will do their census, so we don't have any problems and we don't have fewer people that filled out census forms than vote. So, but I've really had it with sales, and I've reported sales, but I've not gotten any feedback from county when I filed my complaint there.
Okay. I can look into that with our colleagues about seeing what information we can get out to that company in particular or others and just create some awareness. But absolutely, it's not permitted. Only those 2 instances that or examples that I provided, census workers and political canvassing.
Thank you. That would be a big help, because I've told people it's COVID. You can't come banging on people's doors and bringing your germs to my house, and they get really upset.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions around the tiers and our metrics, our data?
Yes, let's talk about the timing aspect of things. You said that we needed to have 2 weeks of below the certain point in order to be eligible to then come off of that, those restrictions. Did I get that right? And when, so let's just say that we do what we need to do and are successful in reducing all the metrics, and in a best case scenario, when would it be potentially up to then the school district to decide if they wanted to open?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is overall a little bit. It even took me a while to think I got it down in terms of the weeks and the movement, because see, overall when this was rolled out, it was relayed that one cannot move from one tier to the other. You have to stay in each tier for 3 weeks minimum, so that we see any potential impact of increased cases when one moves from one tier to the other. But what happens is that they made an exception for the initial slating of the tiers, where we landed on the first tier, the more restrictive one. All those in the purple tier one, like us, we only need to stay to meet the new tier metrics, those in the red, such as a 7 case rate, for 2 weeks. Then after that, once we land in the red, we would have to meet the new metrics to be able to move to the next tier, which is orange. We would have to be there for 3 weeks. So that's one thing. But specifically to answer your question in terms of for schools and such, that would mean that, for example, we're monitoring the data right now for the week that ends September 19th. That is what on Tuesday the state will put up the metrics for each county. If we come in and under 7 for a case rate that's keeping us from moving, keeping us on, if we come in under 7 this Tuesday, then 1 more week is all we need to continue to meet that that marker of being under 7. And then after that week, I don't have a calendar here, but after next Tuesday and then the following week would be really when schools after that, in 2 weeks, they would be able to open themselves. So that would give them, 2 weeks to prepare. Hopefully, they're already kind of anticipating that, soon enough we'll be in that red tier and have plans to reopen. I know a lot of them have, most of them have very good plans and would be ready. Others might take a little bit longer. But anyways, it'd be two weeks after we move into the red tier when schools will be able to open.
Thank you for that. All right. Well, we've heard from Rigoberto. Are there any more discussion on the public health thing before he moves on to the trick or treat aspect of things, the Halloween part of the story?
I have a question for Rigoberto. In regard to when they open the schools, are there conditions that will be followed as far as distancing and wearing a mask?
Yes, thank you for that question. Very much so. There's guidelines or really expectations from the state, and then locally we work with the County Office of Ed to just fine tune and adapt those guidelines to Ventura County. And so those are up, I believe, in our website, but certainly in the Ventura County Office of Ed. That is the guidelines for schools to be able to open. And so it does involve, a regular continued cleaning and disinfecting, of the school property, distancing as much as possible, in terms of the setup of the classroom. Ideally, if weather permits and facilities permit, more outdoor, instruction, and yes, mask wearing for children as well. And so second grade and above would be expected or required to have face covering. So there are those requirements. They come from the state. We're pretty much in alignment with those. We just made some tweaks, more applicable to Ventura County in, again, communication with VCOE, Office of Ed. And similarly, in terms of right now, we have been granting waivers the state allows for, even in situations like ours, that we're in the more restricted tier. The schools can apply for a waiver for K6, grade kinder through 6th, and so those have to have those schools waiver applications submitted to us and to the state after we review it, and that outlines a very specific, comprehensive safety plan for reopening. And so similarly, when we move into red tier, and that then it would allow all schools of K-12 to open, then without having to go through a waiver process, they would need to have similar robust safety plans in place.
Thank you.
Well, let's hope that our numbers keep trending in the right direction and that we're able to get the kids back to school at the earliest possible date. And, however that sorts out through distance learning and whatever, let's hope for the best on this one. And everyone keep up the good work.
Definitely, thank you. Yes, we're out hoping to get there in a safe manner for the children's sake, and of course for everyone's sake, including the parents that are having to adjust, continue to adjust their their working and home life situations to accommodate the distance learning. And so, okay, just conclude with a real quick remark or reminder regarding Halloween. It's such an important topic because we understand children and everyone we've been asked to limit gatherings and get-togethers and stay indoors as much as possible and such, and we would love to be able to tell children go out there and enjoy Halloween as you normally would. However, we just finished saying we're not our numbers as a whole, even if in your community you're doing so well, but as a whole, there's still in the Turk County what we would consider and the state would consider widespread community transmission. And so the CDC actually, you may know, just came out, and the State Department is about to come out with guidance that pretty much is in alignment with what we already came out with, guidance that basically says, it's not recommended, the traditional door-to-door treating. We recognize, frankly, though, that, some families are just saying, hey, I'm going to do this for my children and we're going to take the risk. And so in those situations, we're saying it's not recommended, but if you do trick-or-treating, be respectful of homes and streets or families that are not, going to offer trick-or-treats. And then do it in the safest manner possible. Ideally, not approaching the door. Maybe it could be an outdoor, grab bag type. So, anyways, we have actual guideline out there. Bottom line is we're pretty much in alignment with state and federal authorities that are all coming together and saying, that, as much as we would love to, give some green light on this activity to do traditional trick-or-treating, it's really still not the time. But if you're going to do it as a parent, please do it safely and respect, each other's preferences in terms of your neighbors. If you do trick-or-treating, and so that's kind of where we're at. It's not recommended traditional, but if you're going to do it, we have some guidelines on how to do it safer.
Perfect.
Rigoberto, while we're on the subject of gatherings, an organization I'm a member of, the Organic Garden Club, has expressed interest in finding out when outdoor activities may return for things like this. And I had posed this question to staff about the information that I had heard about gatherings of 10 people. Now, does that apply to Ventura County, or is that something from some other newscast that doesn't apply to us? And can you shed a little light on these outdoor gatherings? And I'll be specific. The idea of a garden club touring the botanical gardens. You've got an outdoor setting, you've got the ability to spread out and people to wear masks. So I'm trying to see if this is now something that's within reach of our members and the general public, or are we still too far from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, it's a timely, good question, because the state is letting health officers and directors across the state know that they're coming up with some guidance and getting some input from us on not large gatherings, but social gatherings. And so it would potentially allow, what they're looking at is allowing small groups of perhaps 12 or so, among up to 3 families, to be able to gather mainly, well, actually, I think it's going to be strictly outdoors where this guidance is going to address. So it would include that example that you mentioned in terms of the garden club. So it's forthcoming. There's some debate about it because there's still, as I said, community transmission, and we still need social distancing and masks and such to happen, because there is still the community transmission. But people, we need some. The other thought is, people are kind of tired of being told what they can't do during these times. And furthermore, gatherings are happening, and in fact, it is keeping our numbers up. Some of our cases are occurring while gatherings are taking place. So there's two ways to look at that. Since it's already happening, maybe coming up with the guidance on if you have to do it with cohorts or groups of no more than 3 families, and try to do what you do, in a social gathering with only those 3 families, outdoors and such. And so maybe it's a way to acknowledge that people do need some reprieve from being told to mainly stay indoors, but to still be careful. And if there is cases or an outbreak, at least we will be able to work backwards with those 3 families and such. So it's forthcoming.
Thank you.
I'd like to plant a seed in your perspective. There are many people like me who are single person households or older households that don't have kids. And a lot of the restrictions really say we couldn't do anything forever because we're not family units. And I know a number of groups that I belong to were kind of going through the discussions of, can we have small groups, say half a dozen of us go for a hike with masks and social distancing, or get together for an outside picnic or play music together, but everybody's space is out and nobody touches anybody and gets in each other's face. It seems like a lot of those of us who are not family households are ignored in how these issues are being looked at, and trying to figure out, well, we're not family, but some of us are used to being together, we're healthy, everybody's seriously discouraged from, if you even think you're going to be sneezing, go away. And being really conservative about contact. But we have a pretty ugly outlook if we do not have some version of being together with people that we know and enjoying outside activities. I know none of my friends are throwing in house parties. I certainly wouldn't, but being outside and being in places that allow people to be far enough apart, I think, it would be nice to get those allowances back.
Yeah, Rigoberto, that's essentially the same point that I was making about the garden club. And I know you talked on the say 3 nuclear families that are related together that can do this, and Wendy's point of separate people. So let's talk about when you think that this sort of a thing that both of us just described might be an officially acceptable thing to do.
Yeah, you guys both bring up an important point, the very specific around, the family versus individuals. And so I'll keep that in mind and be on the lookout for, it may be, just a, overall, guideline for, up to 3 families, but that it may be and/or 12 individuals that, could be, a couple or an individual themselves making up those 12, a group of 12. So definitely an important point. I'll keep that in mind and see if I can also provide input if it doesn't allow already for the and/or being the 3 groups and making up 12 individuals.
Thank you, because I know a lot of people that have that concern, and we're feeling kind of excluded in many ways.
Yeah.
Gotta move on.
So Rigoberto, that will be our follow-up question for you. We would like to hear back on that issue of non-nuclear families getting together externally in outdoor environments. What is the potential for that, and when? So I'll ask staff to follow up on that question at some point. And we thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you all for your efforts and the invitation.
Thank you. Nice to hear that Newbury Park is doing a good job.
Thank you, Rigo.
Thank you, Rigoberto Vargas.
Thank you, Rigo.
Enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thank you.
All righty. So we've got our update items from previous meetings, and we have with us, joining us, Brian Barreto from Cal American Water, and I believe he's next on the agenda. We welcome in Brian, and introduce yourself and give us what you got.
Sure. Hi, my name is Brian Barreto, and I'm the External Affairs Manager for Southern California at California American Water, as you know. I hope all is well with you and your family and your loved ones during these unprecedented times. I'm thankful that Scott and the MAC committee invited us to come and provide you an update on our 2021 through 2023 general rate case that's currently before the California Public Utilities Commission. I'd like to thank County Supervisor Linda Parks for her leadership and allowing us to address this committee, and Denise for her help in scheduling this for us. I see Jay Spurgeon is here with us. Hello, Jay. It's good to see you. And I also have my work colleague, Wes Owens. Stephen Owens is on the line with us. He is our Director of Regulatory and Rates. And we are here to provide you with an update. We did have some remarks, but we'd rather just have an open and honest conversation, have it more interactive, answer any questions you may have. And what I'll do is I'll just sort of give you sort of a little bit of a background. As you know, California American Water, we're required to submit a general rate case to the Public Utilities Commission every 3 years. We filed last year, 2019, for a 3-year rate case cycle for the years of 2021 through 2023. We are currently, the commission, the California Public Utilities Commission is currently reviewing our application. Typically, it takes about 18 months for the application to be reviewed. It goes through some data requests, there's testimony, there's discovery, and then the commission comes out with a proposed decision. Typically, we anticipate it come out sometime in December of this year, maybe January of 2021, with rates taking effect in January of 2021. But there has been a little bit of a delay. There's been a change in the timeline based on some things that have happened at the commission, and also some things that, that are happening in the world, in particular the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's kind of where it stands. I'd love to ask Wes to talk about, give an update from the rates perspective, and then what we'd love to do is just open it up to answer any questions you may have and address your concerns.
Sure, thanks, Brian. Just to make sure you guys can hear me okay. So yeah, I would say that through mid-March, we were like everybody else in kind of the world, I guess. We were kind of on track with our procedural schedule. And like Brian said, it would have called for hopefully a decision by the end of this year, with rates becoming effective in January. And that included, we did public participation hearings statewide, and specifically 3 in our, we look at it like the Ventura district, but 1 in Camarillo and 2 in the city of Thousand Oaks in early February. And the ratepayer advocates submitted their testimony, and you know, we submitted our rebuttal, and everything was kind of going along smoothly, and we were kind of getting ready for settlement discussions and hearings. And then in mid-March, like everything else, once the kind of COVID hit, and I know for our company, we went under a work from home order in mid-March, and probably more importantly, the commission also did the same thing. And all their staff, like, they're based out of San Francisco, and basically they all started working from home as well. And it kind of like, we were supposed to have hearings and to discuss this issue initially in kind of April, May timeframe, and then it got pushed to June because of, they just weren't sure how to handle the technological issues. It's an administrative hearing, you know, and so there's a lot of requirements around having the hearings transcribed and how evidence is handled, and I think they just didn't know how to do it. Understandably, they didn't know how to do it remotely, so it just kept getting pushed. And the last push was to August, and then in mid-July, we got a notice from them, from the assigned judge, basically suspending the procedural schedule. And so what that means is our rate case application is still on the docket and still is being, you know, reviewed, but the hearings were postponed with no set date for when they were going to occur. Basically, we're supposed to reconvene in mid-November. and in the meantime, continue settlement discussions and continue mediation under the Commission's alternative dispute resolution process. And just to step back, kind of before all this happened, we were going through settlement, including with City of Thousand Oaks. Jay, I think you could speak to that, and I would frame it as like positive discussions. You know, I hope Jay would feel the same way. I'll let him speak to that himself, but I think they were good discussions. They were a little delayed at times. Maybe they didn't happen as fast as we would have liked, but I think that was just part of us also getting used to working remotely and working from home. But that's kind of where we're at this point. Like I said, we're continuing with mediation with the parties that we don't have agreements with, and we're hoping to get, not hoping, we will get some settlement agreements filed, and we can't speak to those because it's all a confidential process. I mean, I don't know. I guess I should have asked our attorneys ahead of time, Jay, if we could speak to our, the potential settlement agreement with the City of Thousand Oaks. But basically everything's kind of delayed, unfortunately, or we feel unfortunately, and we're probably looking at a final decision more in like spring or even spring of next year, or even mid 2021, unfortunately. So that's kind of an update on where we're at. I don't know if you want us to go back over any of the original parts of our filing, or what was involved in that, or how you, but we're, like Brian said, open for any questions. Or
first, what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite Venice to unmute Jay so that he can become an active participant in the discussion, being our neighbor and a person with specific knowledge of the process. Is that acceptable, Venice? And to the rest of the members? Jay, I think you're live and you're in the scene. You're in the mix, mister. So chime in whenever you like. So as a chairman of the committee, I'm only now getting the full feel of the thing. But when I first joined the MAC, we were already knee deep in the last round of rate increase requests by CalAm, which, when spelled out in clear terms, was very bad for us out here, and so bad so that we had to have the the City of Thousand Oaks knew it was such a bad situation that they got into legal discussions with you at CalAm, and immense amounts of money were spent on both sides, and it took on for a long time, and eventually things were worked out. And it took much longer than everybody wanted it to. So it was frustrating and a painful experience for the community. So when we started these discussions, and Jay outlined the very complex combination of situations you guys at CalAm had outlined for us, it was very clear that there was an awful lot of a shell game going on, as mixed direction and different things happening here. And Jay wasn't able to clearly explain which was better because he said there was conflicting data in the paperwork. And this is actually reflected in our last minutes as well, from the January 15th meeting there. So first off, let's just say that we're all very skeptical of your proposals and your things, and are disappointed in the misdirection and the amount of shenanigans that comes out of these things, and the amount of energy that's put into these things here. So I'm saying, on behalf of being a good corporate and public utility, just mellow it out and get back to what it should be, the little things like that. Do away with all of your things and that are causing these difficulties. Wouldn't that be a much better situation for us to have Stephen and Brian?
Well, I disagree with the notion that we mischaracterize or are playing a shell game, clearly. And if you can give some examples of that, we can respond. I feel like our proposal is, our proposal is thoroughly reviewed by the Public Utilities Commission. I would put the review process we go through up against any public utility, any municipal utility. We file thousands of pages of paperwork, and I agree that can be, from a layperson's perspective, it can be daunting to try to review something like that. And we can try to walk you through that if you'd like. I guess what I'd say is it's daunting because it is a complicated process. And like Brian said, we're required to file every 3 years. That's in the PU code. Delays in the last rate case were outside of our control. Even the commission, by granting us interim rates, agreed that any delay was outside of our control. So I don't think the delay was within our hands. And I think that, the proposal we've put forward is actually beneficial, I think, to customers in the Ventura district, especially around the consolidation and the consolidation of the high purchase water costs in the Ventura district.
I see. I'm going to ask Jay to take a look, and since January 15th, when you came and gave us a little bit of your evaluation, would you give us more of an update of what you feel about things at this point, please?
Certainly be happy to do that, Scott. As you pointed out, the previous rate case was very different, and the city was in strong opposition at that time. You mentioned that. Ultimately, the PUC did not approve CalAm's proposal to consolidate previously during the last go-around. So this proposal that they have submitted is, in my opinion, much different than it was the last time. It also includes consolidation. Again, it's not a full consolidation, it's partial, but it is quite opposite of the last time, whereas the consolidation rates would actually be lower, more of a benefit to people here in Thousand Oaks and Casa Conejo and Ventura County, as opposed to their standalone proposal. So from that perspective, it is a much different proposal than it was the last time. The city is not strongly opposing their proposal this go around as we did last time. And as Wes pointed out earlier, that the city has been talking to CalAm, and we have tentatively reached some deal points on a settlement that is yet to be drawn up and approved because of all the delays that Wes had mentioned. So unfortunately, I can't talk either about details because of the PUC, the very strict PUC confidentiality rules about settlement discussions. But I can tell you that my feeling about it is pretty positive. That what I think we'll be able to come back with ultimately when the settlement agreement is approved. At that time, we'll be able to share that with you and with others, what the details are. That again, I feel pretty positive. So, water rates are going to go up for a number of reasons. Everybody's water rates are increasing, just like all utilities costs are increasing. The city's water rates went up recently, as well as Cal Water Service Company, which is the other private water utility that serves Thousand Oaks residents in the Westlake area. And one of the big drivers is import water. That those costs continue to go up, and then there's others, electricity and labor and maintenance and all the expenses. So that's probably about all I can say at this time. In terms, again, I'm not able, as Brian and Wes are not able, to talk about details of the settlement, and I think at this point we just have to be just be patient, and it could take some time yet. Wes indicated that the case fully won't be decided probably till mid next year, but I think our settlement proposal should be hopefully we'll be able to share with you by the fall.
We're not looking
And the
at
only thing,
any retroactivity through that settlement, are we?
no, there's no retro. You mean as far as, maybe I don't understand the question.
Well, we've had
Sorry.
delays in getting things settled courtesy of COVID and whatever all else, but there won't be anything that applies retroactively so that we would be suddenly getting a big chunk on our bill that says, well, we were supposed to do this at this time, but we couldn't, so now we're billing you what we were planning to bill, but you haven't started paying the higher rates yet.
There's nothing like that in the settlement, but the commission does allow that through their rate-making process, that rates become effective retroactively if the delay is outside the control of the utility to January 1, 2021.
Okay, are there any more questions or comments for our representatives from Cal-Am?
Can I add?
Good.
I was just going to add one other thing that might be helpful, and even though it seems like you're going to let us off the hook, maybe, so maybe I should just be quiet and move along. But to kind of like the point, and I wasn't with the company in our last general rate case, so I'll say that. I've only kind of heard, but Brian was, and I've heard, and my boss, who's the vice president of rates, and Brian and others in our Ventura district have kind of shared a lot of the customer backlash from our last general rate case. So when we came into this one, we did make including like very difficult public participation hearings, I'd say, right? When would that have been? Like 2016, 2017, like literally like our folks running out the door to, with maybe not literally running out the door, but, maybe figuratively. But we did try to, in this filing, take that feedback into account, and especially the feedback from the city of Thousand Oaks and the commission's findings based on the city's input, and revised our proposal pretty substantially to address some of those concerns. And I think that's part of why we've been able to have constructive conversations with the city of Thousand Oaks, and also why I think the public participation hearings, while well attended and we got great feedback there too, weren't as contentious, and more of like a getting good feedback and us having open dialogue with customers and providing input to the ALJ. So I think that's part of why I hope and think that this filing is not as contentious, and we were on track. To your point about the retroactivity, I was very positive and felt very strongly that we'd done everything we could to get a timely decision, and the commission was moving forward, and then like COVID kind of blew that up. So that's all I wanted to add, is we did try to take in that feedback and the findings from the commission from the last GRC and incorporate that into this filing. So I just wanted to share that a little bit.
Scott,
well, we appreciate that.
I would also add is that we're more than happy, as Jay and Wes and we've explained, is, it's kind of a waiting game for us right now. And we are more than happy to come back and do an additional update and briefing to the MAP committee once we have some new and updated information that we can share with you. I'm always available. Please feel free to reach out to me if you hear something or you have questions about your water service, or just some general questions about the rate case process. I'm more than happy to take your call or respond to an email. My phone number, if you want to take it down, the best number for me is 626-388-7484. That's my mobile number. Again, it's 626-388-7484. And as Wes had mentioned, since about March 6th or March 7th, we employees at California American Water that have the ability to work remotely, we have been working remotely, and it looks like we are scheduled to work remotely through January of 2021. Our company has taken a very proactive, conservative health concern for its employees, both office employees and field employees. So that mobile number is the best way. The other way to get a hold of me is through my email address, and my email address is Brian, BRIAN, Barreto, BARRETO, at amwater.com.
Cool.
And if you'd like sorry to interrupt you, but if you'd like my contact info, I can either Brian can pass it along, or I can email it, or I can give it to you right now. I'm available for questions also.
What would be real easy is if you type it into chat, and that way Venice can put it into the minutes. Do you have chat available to you?
Yeah.
I don't see it at the
Oh,
bottom.
that sounds pretty
Well,
high tech there, Wendy. Are we actually
I
able
can
to do
email
high
it
tech?
to you. I can also email it to you after the meeting.
Okay, that would be fine then.
That's fine.
I'm wondering, are you changing your water sourcing at all? My water at home seems to have a little higher mineral content of late. I'm having to clean out my little faucet screens and things more.
Sorry, Brian, you go ahead. You're closer to it than I am.
Our water source is similar to the City of Thousand Oaks water source. We're 100% purchase water from Callegas Municipal Water, who gets their water from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. They bring it down through the Delta and the God, I drawing a blank. Why can't I remember?
California water, the California
aqueduct. The aqueduct. They bring it down the aqueduct. MWD may have done some updating or may have tweaked their water a little bit. I'm not aware of it, but I'm happy to, Ms. Zimmerman, if you give me your address, we can send somebody out to take a look at your service, and we can see if there's something, an anomaly that's going on. We're more than happy to come out and take a look if
it may just be my old house and other stuff that I need to replace. We're 1964 tracked out here.
Okay.
But I just wondered if something happened to have changed. It's really subtle.
Wendy, every year there's a period of time when the water supply changes the disinfection from what's called chloramines to chlorine, and that's a routine operational change that there's some benefits to doing that, but there's a period of time then when the water quality changes, and it's kind of a taste and odor thing more. It's not really a sediment thing, but that is that may be, that occurred this spring, I believe. So that may be something that you might have noticed.
Okay, no big changes, and it may just be my sensitive skin.
Ms. Zimmerman, if there's something else that goes on, or if you continue to have some concerns, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect you with our field service staff and our operations director, and get somebody to come out to your home.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Perfect.
So just before we leave, I want to ask about the consolidation portion of this program that you're bringing forward here. My recollection of the last consolidation effort essentially involved three disparate different communities into one bigger thing and sort of making the rates uniform amongst them. Can you go into this, the new version that you're talking about, please?
Sure, I could do that. Yeah, the new version is, it's from a high level, it's similar to our consolidation proposal in the last year. The only in that it's a consolidation with what we call our Los Angeles district, but it's not, we don't serve City of Los Angeles. We serve the communities of Baldwin Hills, Duarte, and San Marino, and Los Angeles County. So I know at some of the workshop meetings we had in the City of Thousand Oaks in January, that was a concern of some customers. They just saw a consolidation of what we call our LA district and our San Diego district, and they thought, oh, California American Water must serve City of Los Angeles, and they want to consolidate our smaller service area with 100,000 or hundreds of thousands of connections, right? And so one thing that helped is when we clarified that the consolidation is actually more consolidation of equals, really, size-wise, customer count-wise. And I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but the number of customers we serve in our, what we call our Ventura district, which is largely City of Thousand Oaks customers, is about the same as the number of customers we serve in our LA district and the number of customers we serve in our San Diego district. So
approximately how many approximately?
Oh man.
Approximately the connections that we have in our Ventura County district, which includes Thousand Oaks and a portion of Camarillo and Ventura County, is about approximately 28,000 connections. Our San Diego district, which is also part of the Southern California district, which we're proposing to consolidate with, is about 26,000, approximately about 26,000 customers. And then our Los Angeles County district, which is made up of 3 water systems, which Wes mentioned, the Duarte water system, the San Marino water system, and the Baldwin Hills water system. There are about another 27,000 customers. So they're very connections, excuse me. And they're very similar in size. They have differences in terms of water sources. The San Gabriel Valley, our Los Angeles County district, even though we have 3 water systems, the Baldwin Hills Service District water system is on the west side of town, just south of Culver City, east of the Crenshaw district. Our San Marino system serves the entire city of San Marino. And then our Duarte system serves the entire city of Duarte and Bradbury. And then between the San Marino system and the Duarte system, there's about 7 other cities in the San Gabriel Valley that we serve. We either serve a portion of them or half of them. Some of them, for example, Temple City, Rosemead, El Monte, South El Monte, Arcadia, portion of Monrovia, portion of East Pasadena. So the majority of them are in the northeastern San Gabriel Valley, right along the 210 corridor, 605 corridor.
Right.
Okay.
So,
our San Diego district, just for reference, we serve the entire city of Imperial Beach and the entire city of Coronado, and then roughly about 16,000, 18,000 connections in the city of San Diego itself.
So some of the feedback, which was interesting, was at the workshop, was you guys should stop calling it the LA district and the San Diego district, especially if we're going to consolidate, because it I think implies that we're trying to roll in a smaller district with like these huge other service territories and trying to pass costs from them to Ventura customers, right? And I can understand why customers would be concerned about that. So, so just to get to the point, the biggest difference in this consolidation proposal from the last is that in our Ventura district, and it's the same for City of Thousand Oaks and for Cal Water, like Jay referenced, purchased water, like the water we buy from the wholesale provider to serve to our customers, is the largest, I would say by far, source of cost, the component of cost. And it's over, God, Jay, you would probably know better than me. It's over 60%. I don't know if it's edging up to like 70% yet, but it's their increases, I think, are probably exceed ours on a dollar per unit basis, I think, over time. You know, maybe I'm Jay, like I said, jump in if you think I'm like overstating that, but I know you guys dealt with this also. So our biggest and the biggest change in our consolidation that benefits directly customers in our Ventura district is we are requesting to consolidate more of that purchase water cost into the consolidated Southern Division. So we're taking the largest cost component in the Ventura district and start spreading it over more customers, basically 3 times the number of customers. Now, at the same time, you know, just so, you know, just for full transparency, we are spreading costs from those districts also amongst the full Southern Division. But for those districts, there are more fixed costs. You know, they have more, because we're, especially in our LA district, because we're pumping groundwater out of the ground, we have more wells, we have more reservoirs, we have more booster stations. So it's a bit more of a spreading of fixed costs, but those, for the most part, don't increase as dramatically as I'd say the purchase water costs do. So we're taking a cost component that's higher portion of our cost in Ventura and increases at a faster rate and spreading it over more customers. So I think to me, that was the biggest change in the consolidation proposal. The other thing we're doing is, while our proposal did still include the same rate design and rates across the Southern Division, we kind of based them more off of our Ventura customers, you know, like how much usage there would be in Ventura, because the Ventura customers are kind of like in between. Like our San Diego customers are very low users, some of our LA district customers are very high users, and Ventura is kind of like in between somewhere there. So by basing the rate design a little more on the average Ventura customer, it kind of had less of an impact compared to our proposal in the last general rate case. So I would say at a high level, those are the two big differences, but I think the consolidation of purchase water costs is the larger driver for the difference in this rate case. So I don't know if Jay would agree or disagree, but to me, that was the big difference.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that there. I apologize. I had your name as Steve Owens on my phone, on my screen there. I understand it says you're actually West. So what's the story on that? Who's Steve Owens? And why do you have his phone?
West is my middle name.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, that's it. Stephen Wesley, and I've gone by West my entire life. So it's kind of like in emails and stuff, it'll show up as Stephen, or if I get it changed, West, but no worries, I go by both.
And I use my middle name as well.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Great.
Well, all right. I thank our two representatives from Cal American Water for joining us. If there's any more questions that come later, we'll have them forwarded to you through staff, and we thank you very much for being part of this this exchange of ideas and stuff, and wish you well on the rest of your day and the rest of the week for you guys.
Right.
Thank you. We're
Thank
happy
you
to
for
be
coming.
here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We look
Bye-bye.
forward to you again.
Thank you, Jay, also.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Jay.
Jay, thank you very much for stepping in on this thing and helping us out on this. It always helps to have someone who is involved with the process and has the nitty-gritty details in the process and can help us bring clarity. I appreciate that. How's it going for you in the retired world?
Hey, I recommend it. I know a few of you on the screen here already know about it, but yeah, you ought to try this for retirement thing if you're not. It's
Yeah,
great.
I'd have a harder time recognizing you if I bumped into you at the grocery store.
Yeah, it looks
Great.
like retirement's doing well for you there. Good, good.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I'm going to move on to the agenda items on our thing here. We have Ed for the graffiti removal intervention team report, please.
Okay, if everybody can hear me okay, we had two places, one on Windy Bridge on both sides last month, and the Jenny Drive Bridge had some stuff on both sides. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet for the last 6 months. So we're doing good, it's staying clear. Once somebody calls, we usually hit it and get it done real quickly.
Ed, is it the same person, or is it the same, I should say the same tag that we're getting each time, or is it a different tag?
This time it was a different, I think it's a bunch of new adolescents that were trying to prove that they were CVL or something like that, because they've actually painted it differently. In fact, they put their, what do you call that, the Instagram name up there so the sheriff could find it easily. So I think it's just a couple of guys there, about 4 or 5 of these kids that are coming up and they think they're tough. Other than that, it's about the same. But that's
Thank
it.
you, Ed.
We're looking good.
Well, thank you very much for keeping on top of that and keeping the graffiti down. I know that when anyone sees anything like that, it's just gets you, and it's appreciated when you guys are on top of that.
Get right on it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move on here to comments of Ventura County Supervisor Linda Parks. Linda, welcome, and what do you got for us?
Okay, a few things. One is we have an open seat on the MAC as well as an alternate seat. And email Venice if you are interested. And if you know of somebody, that would be good too. Items of interest include we have an election coming, and we have an ability to not only vote by mail, which people have over 70% of the voters in Ventura County do. There's also the opportunity to go to a ballot drop box, and there are 33 of these secure ballot drop boxes throughout the county. And the one closest to you guys is at the fire station number 32 on Reno. It's outdoors, and you can start dropping your ballots in those boxes on October 6th, all the way through Election Day. In addition, you can take your ballot to a polling location, and the closest in-person polling location near you is at Newberry Park High School. And you don't have to wait till Election Day. You can drop it off as early as Halloween, October 31st. And as you know, Election Day is the first Tuesday, and that's November 3rd. We approved our general plan. It was a long, arduous process, and of course, we'll probably get sued for it too, so it may not be over. But 4 or 5 years in the making, I was delighted to get it approved on a 3-2 vote. It was probably the more contentious part was how far we allow oil wells from residences and from schools. We are requiring a 2,500-foot setback from schools and a 1,500-foot setback from residences. And the 2,500 feet, I think Culver City just duplicated that, but other than that, those might be the strongest in the nation. Additionally, in that general plan update was a tree planting program that I got approved, that the county will be responsible for planting 1,000 trees a year. And we're actually focusing on disadvantaged communities on a lot of our proposals out there, or they're not proposals anymore, policies out there. But another one of those is to do sidewalk maintenance if we can get funding for it, and to also prioritize disadvantaged communities, which is a new one that I was able to get through too. Regarding Wendy Drive, the general plan update allows it to go to a level of service F, which is the worst. So what that means is they won't ever have to change it to a 2-lane or 4-lane road, because to meet a level of service. So you're not having to worry about that. And the fact that we did get it through actually was copied by Supervisor Bennett on a road in Ojai, did the same thing. I think it's Old Creek Road. So they don't have to worry about it in the future getting widened. And that was how we resolved that. And I'm glad for that. And those on Wendy and those who drive at Wendy are benefited, I think, from that, but particularly those who live on Wendy. Also, when we had those wonderful community beautification events back in the day, well, we're trying to figure out how to get them going again. But in the meantime, they remain canceled. And those are the days when you can go drop off your big bulky items and your green waste and your electronic waste and such. So we're seeing if they can find a safe COVID way of doing it in the fall. I know that I was able to donate a bunch of stuff to the Goodwill, and they just let you pull up and dump it in the bin and you drive off. So I would imagine there's a way to do some of this. Interesting thing that will be on the ballot come November is an initiative that got approved with signatures that got on the ballot, and that is called Measure O, which allows for growing cannabis in greenhouses, only in greenhouses. And 600 acres worth of greenhouses could be changed to grow cannabis. We did do a study, and the study said probably won't use more than 200 acres. But when you think about it, the entire state of California, greenhouse cultivation of cannabis is about 200 acres. So that's allowed in our county unincorporated area if the voters approve it. Additionally, comparing to Santa Barbara County, where there are 60 acres, ours allows 600 acres. So it's a concern if you happen to live within the vicinity because it's very odoriferous. And we heard a lot of that regarding hemp, which our county ordinance at this time requires a half-mile buffer. Here with cannabis, I believe it was 1,200 or 1,500 feet, so a lot closer. What is it, 1,200?
1,200.
Thank you, Denise. Yes, there it is in my notes. So also, I know Wendy mentioned that she got out on Potrero Road and on the bike lane there, which is nice because previously there was no bike lane, and you know the state law requires at least a 3-foot distance between cyclists and cars, but these cars are going 50 miles an hour and such. So real important to have that separation, and while it's more than 3 feet, we need to get as much distance as we can. Before, cars actually had to go over the yellow to avoid when they were passing cyclists. So glad to have it. And we had a little ribbon cutting, but I also got it approved by the Board of Supervisors to name it the Mike Nosco bike lane, and that's named after a veteran who did a couple of tours and was killed in a traffic accident, but his brother is a firefighter who also helped us get this road in and is known well for the Nosco Foundation ride. They raise money in honor of Mike Nosco for people who are suffering physical illnesses and such. So at any rate, we're going to dedicate the Mike Nosco bike lane on Potrero Road on Election Day, which was the day he was killed many years ago. And because of COVID, you gotta be 6 feet apart and wear masks and all that. So don't get off your bikes. And we're thinking, we can have a bit of a bike parade between the signs, but more of that to come. Was it at 11:30 that we're kind of be the center part of all of that? Venice, do you recall?
11:30 on Election Day.
Okay. And then finally, it was great having Rigoberto Vargas, who is our public health director, give you all the skinny on COVID. We are doing well in the East County, and if we weren't connected to the West County, we would be able to go in that next tier like now. But we are all a county together, so working all we can. And part of the reason why, I don't think he mentioned it, that we haven't been able to get the number of cases per day threshold is because we have inmates in our jail that have COVID. And I think it's up to 99 now. And those get counted in our numbers. However, if they don't get counted when looking at state prisons or federal prisons, but just county jails get it. So we've been trying to see if we can get some wiggle room there, but at any rate, in the meantime, our numbers are declining pretty significantly. So I'm feeling pretty confident in the next week or so, as Rico is too, that we'll be able to go from purple to red, and that will allow some more businesses and schools to open. So looking forward to that for sure. And yes, because we are in COVID times, you just start thinking about, okay, fortunately, we don't have a wildfire going. We are still getting PSPSs, which are the power shutoffs that are happening from Edison. And you could end up in a situation where you need to evacuate if there is a wildfire or what have you. We also have heat waves and there was an earthquake, and you know what it's like out there. The air quality has gotten very bad in some points. But if you have to evacuate because of COVID, because we are in COVID times, the evacuation centers aren't going to be like they were, because that they can't accept a bunch of people, right? Because of COVID, they don't want people close together. So it's likely that you may be in your car. And in that situation, there are just some extra things to think about. One, make sure your car is got gas in it. Fill your car up, make sure you've got gas. Your phones, we learned that, you know, it doesn't take long till your phone doesn't work because it's not charged. You can also buy yourself a phone charger. There are different things you can think about. You don't want to have food from the evacuation center. You want to have your own food, right? You want to have your own water, those kind of things. Again, because of COVID, you want to have your own stuff. And more so now than probably any other time ever, you really do need to have that evacuation kit. That kit needs to have, of course, your medications and all that, but also your food and your water, your masks and all those kind of things. So just thinking about a little bit more with the complication of COVID and the potential for evacuation. And I have two other, I have 4 MACs in my district. 2 of the 4 are actually going to have elections this year, and will cost some amount of money, but it's the first time ever in the Santa Rosa Valley since it was formed in December 2003 that we've actually got more candidates than we have seats. And then same thing is happening in Oak Park. And in both those instances, I think the challenger has not been to a MAC meeting, but they just want to be a part of their community. And so we're hoping that if they are elected, they will be interested in everything that the other members have been involved in for a long time. And just goes to show how it's nice to have this MAC and have the history, but by having a lot of folks that have been on for a while, and then also having new folks coming in. But if you do have any thoughts of others to consider, do let Denise know. And I think that concludes my comments, and I'm of course open for questions.
Supervisor Parks, I have a question for you. As you know, most of our houses in Casa Conejo do not have air conditioning. And some of the places that would normally be cooling center options for us, like libraries, are closed because of COVID. I've sometimes really wanted to get out of my house and have some place to go. And other than the mall, which now I guess we have some access to the interior of the mall at the Oaks, we don't really seem to have much of any place to go to sit in, you know, someplace other than home.
Yeah, they do have cooling centers. The county does have cooling centers. And actually, I think there was an article in the LA Times today or yesterday, you know, there's like 3 people in a huge room because people are not going to the cooling centers, but they are available when we hit the extreme heats.
Because I know our local library is closed.
No.
That would be a spot where I would go.
You know, generally it's at a Red Cross location. For example, the teen center in Thousand Oaks, or sometimes they have it at parks. But generally, those get announced when the heat hits, and they're not. You're right. They're not libraries. They're not malls. They're not movie theaters. All those places where some people would go if they could. Yeah, I mean, we had some pretty hot days, didn't we? I think 116 in Thousand Oaks.
Over Labor Day, I think it was 114 here.
Yeah, and Camarillo got like 121 or something. It's just like crazy.
There wasn't much of any place to go because places are so closed with COVID. So I know we've got some more heat coming in later in the week or so.
Yeah, and you know, that's a good point that Venice can let you know when there is a heat wave and extreme heat notice with a cooling center to email you guys, because you can tell the rest of your community too.
Yeah, that would be helpful, especially since some of them have to be different than the ones that have been on the list for a really long time because those locations are closed.
Okay.
So I have a question when you were talking about the COVID relaxing of things, and you mentioned wiggle room regarding the East County versus West County. Are you suggesting that perhaps there is a bit of ability to carve out different portions of the counties, and the one part that is doing good could be relaxed before the rest of the county, when we know that the county jail is dragging the numbers down, type of a thing? Can you elaborate on that?
It's pretty interesting, and I actually
Good question.
put it up on my Facebook because there is a chart, and then maybe I can even send it to Venice. But everything in the East County is meeting the thresholds, and that there's about 5 cities in the West County that is not. The East County meets them, the West County doesn't. So I did ask that question, and I got an absolutely no. But I recalled the city of Westlake Village, which is in LA County, had our numbers, and they really wanted to be associated with Ventura County because we had less restrictions for a while. But nope, we're all considered a unit. I know, I think San Diego or Orange County tried to get different criteria depending on parts of the county, but that's not what the state's doing there. We're all one big happy county, and we are close. I'm thinking, like I said, maybe in the next week or two, we'll get into that next tier.
Hope so.
Very good.
I hope so.
Well, all right. Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much for being with us today and giving your report there. Are there any other questions or comments for our supervisor?
I have a question in regard to Borchard. Are they proposing bike lanes on Borchard Road between the freeway and Reno?
Yes, is Jay still around?
No, but I just met with the BAT last week. We just had a Thousand Oaks Bicycle Advisory Team meeting. And you may have noticed that we've got protected bike lanes further south on Wendy with the new pavement.
Right.
You may have seen those if you go further up the hill, and a lot of places where TO is doing paving, we're getting some bike lanes, some protected, some not, but we're working on getting clearer markings as to where the bikes ought to be and where the cars ought to be. So, but we have spent time talking about Borchard from the freeway on-ramps around to Reno. We've looked at it more than once. The street is not wide enough to accommodate the width required for car lanes and bike lanes, and carve out some of the middle was talked about and so forth. It just doesn't have enough room to do that. You would lose an entire lane of cars traveling that street in order to put a bike lane on that, and with the heavy traffic that street gets and the speed that the traffic goes, it just isn't practical. I wish it were, but I have ridden that street and it's super dangerous. So what happens is, in routing signs and as they're being put, the idea is probably going to be to route most bicycle traffic across Michael, which, as you know, is slowed down because there's that little connector blocker between our tract and the neighboring tract by the school in the middle of Michael. So that makes it a much safer street for cyclists to use to go across the town. And of course, there's me lobbying along with Supervisor Parks for the path that would go along the Arroyo, and nobody'd have to be on the streets from that Borchard all the way to Borchard Park on the other side. That would, for me, that would be the best world, because we're off street and only have to get across Wendy or underneath Wendy, however it would be engineered. So there's not going to be a bike lane on that portion of Borchard. There's just not enough room to put anybody there safely.
So does that mean it doesn't comply with state law?
The street itself as a street does, but as a street with bike lanes, it's not wide enough to do it. There's not enough room for it.
Well, okay.
So the changing it would put it out of compliance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Do we have any more requests or information to share with the supervisor or questions for her?
Thank you.
I did have to call the sheriff the other day because I tried to tell a neighbor that, you know, I had told their kid, I said, hey, where's your bicycle helmet? Small kid. And then he was out, you know, and he says, oh, Mom, the lady next door told me I have to have a bike helmet when I ride. He's about 4. And she gave me serious grief. I was trying to do her a favor, so I finally called the business office for the sheriff's department, had them come talk to her because she's endangering her child, not putting a helmet on her kids. So that was one of my excitements, and I went, you know, that's too bad that a neighbor doesn't see that you're trying to be helpful and help their kid be safe and take serious offense to it. So they came, had a little chat.
Thank you, Linda. We really appreciate you being with us today, and I hope we haven't been too clumsy of a Mac with our first little try at this.
You guys are great, and I hope that you can get that botanical garden with folks in there again. We need places outdoor, and you can go on trails and you can go to parks, so it just makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of our outdoor groups really want to get back to doing things, but in much smaller amounts. You know, it's like you can't run hikes with 25 people anymore, but in like 5 or 6 of us and spaced and being courteous with masks and social distancing and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, be courteous on the trails when you pass people going the other way and stuff. It would be nice to feel like it's acceptable for us to do that.
Okay.
Got it.
Well, I think we'll move on to item number 9 on our agenda. Council comments on items not on the agenda. Do any of our MAC members have anything?
I'm clear.
Richard, anything for you?
No, nothing.
So I have one thing to bring up, and it goes back to the PowerPoint presentation we received from the county transportation person who was talking about the potential expansion of our part of the freeway and what was happening down the Conejo grade and those sort of things. And he was lamenting, if I recall, the fact that there was a measure on the ballot the year before that didn't pass. So he, in digging into his proposal of upgrades, he pointed out that the only thing that's very likely to happen in any time would be a HOV lane added to things as far as that goes. And that wouldn't happen for 10 or 20 years at the earliest type of thing. I refuse to accept that as a problem with our little section of the thing. So I've been doing a little research. The question really is, how can we change from 3 through freeway lanes through the Conejo Valley to 4? Now, at the 23 widening, we're to 4 lanes. So the question is, how can we get from essentially Moore Park to Wendy and over the Conejo grade? Now, they're working on that on the other side. And the real thing is, well, how could this happen? How are we going to get a 4th lane? Well, I've done some research. It turns out we actually have a 4th lane of concrete there. When the freeway was made, a 4th lane of virgin concrete exists right now for us to use as a 4th through lane. It is mostly being underutilized as the service lane where we get on and off. So there is an awful lot of virgin concrete that is not being utilized, and I would like us to take up the idea of perhaps reimagining what that section could be before this 20 years of potentially high HOV lane would be. So the way I've kind of scoped this out, basically you're going to have to shorten the gores. The gore is the little section between an on-ramp exit and the lane, the little point in the freeway. Those gores are going to have to be shortened, and the service lanes are going to have to be absorbed. And there'll have to be some remodifying of the on-ramps and on-ramps. But that isn't affecting the through traffic of the 3 lanes of the Ventura Freeway. These could be done in sections. So I know that the city contributed to that 23-101 junction combination and kind of got the ball moving. I'd like to see what we could do as reimagining that unused virgin concrete as a 4th through lane until they can come to a conclusion about what to do to make a high HOV lane. So how would we pursue this?
So I don't think what you're suggesting is unusual, and it may already be in the hopper for consideration. And of course, if Jay is still there, he can comment. But I'm on the Transportation Commission, and one of the things they are looking at is using auxiliary lanes and guess that's what they call them, the ones that you have to speed up and slow down, and acceleration and decel lanes and all that stuff. But that is definitely something that they are looking at in the interim. But that's a question that, you know, now is very ripe for sending to the Transportation Commission, and we could get that answered. Or, you know, if you want to type it out and send it to me, I'll send it over to Darren Peddle and get you an answer.
Darren, that's right. Darren.
Very good, very good. I'll work with Venice to kind of get the right language together, and we'll get a query letter together to say, how about this idea and what can we do about it?
Really, and like I said, it may very well be considered, because I know that's what they're looking at. Those are the cheap fixes, you know. Adding a lane is just going to be enormous in price and construction, you know, to widen the Conejo grade.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is really to change thinking at the state level. As you know, it took me a ton of inquiries to find out the state is in favor of HOV lanes, which we're really finding out are not the best idea, and allowing the state to give us more flexibility if we're getting state money.
The thing is, it's specifically related to funding, and the funding requires the HOV lane, and so we can't change that and still use the funds. So
that's the point, is to get the state to have more flexible thinking, so that communities can adjust and use it to what works best where they are, not just say, well, we have money for HOV lanes but nothing else, as opposed to putting in center transit down the freeway or extra bike lanes along the outsides or whatever, and having a diversity of ideas that solve the problems for where people are, not just say it's HOV lanes or no money at all. And that's, the state needs to widen its thinking, and we really need to change things at the state level so that at the local level we could get what we need.
I think they would argue just the opposite, is that the local level isn't thinking about the idea that we need to reduce traffic. And so measures like HOV lanes are something they have to jam us with. But I have to say, for all the years that I've worked with Caltrans, they are unbelievably supportive now of bicycle facilities, bicycle lanes, and painting and striping, and those, you've seen the traffic signals that have the yellow backplate on them, that they're doing that. They are doing some pretty incredible work. I think it was, I'm trying to think how much money they have, but a considerable amount of money right now that can go specifically into bicycle lanes. So with your comments regarding Wendy and bicycle lanes, and I know Jay was instrumental in helping get movement on that too. I just saw a whole layout for Lewis Road that they're doing, that they want to do with bicycle lanes. So Squeaky Wheel is really good right now in terms of getting Caltrans to help with bicycle stuff, because they have, I want to say $900 million or something like that. So
yeah, there's a deadline coming up for submitting things that you want Caltrans to do and put them in the hopper of all the projects to be considered. I think it's the 28th, and it's I know Jared Sanchez at CalBike is a contact for that.
Okay. So I advise you to be a squeaky wheel.
Oh,
and I'll get you the, yeah, you don't need that advice.
Most people would say I probably need some tape to shut up sometimes, but
Wendy has that covered.
Well, all right. So any other public comments from MAC members? If not, did we receive any public comment cards or anything? I didn't expect it.
Nothing was, yeah.
So how about we try and recruit Jay to be on the MAC? I mean, this seems to be the most logical, real question. He seems like the guy. We gotta butter him up and get him in.
Yeah, and we will give you like treats and stuff.
Well, if you give Jay treats, you got to give the rest of us treats. But
gum for everybody.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Well, so whenever you sees Jay, if you see him out in the neighborhood, just maybe say, "Hey, you'd be great for the MAC," you know, type of a thing. And
we'll send him an application in the mail.
There you go.
There you
do
go.
that. Yes, do that.
He looks too relaxed.
You can put
right,
a
but I think
post-it on it.
he said he needed to get further away from his job at TO in time, but to avoid a conflict of interest with the MAC. So I don't know if he's cleared that hurdle yet or not through his retirement.
Well, all right. Okay. Future agenda items. Do we have anything, Venice, that we need to know about that is something for the future?
No, but I'll stay in touch with Brian Barretto to get you updates on what's going on with the water rate case.
Okay, and now in our last meeting, there was a couple of impassioned discussions after there was a fatality in on Reno, and we were supposed to look into what the potential of a crosswalk and or remedy for that.
That was in the city, so that was forwarded to the city, and the city did get back to the gentleman. And
You did, okay.
I want to say the result of that was that a crosswalk there would not be safe unless they put a light there, which they're not going to do.
Because it wasn't actually
Otherwise, it would give a false sense of safety to cross a very busy road.
Yes, okay.
So.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
had lobbied Jim Machiko at the city for a crosswalk at Bella and Wendy. And I got a very lengthy explanation of 20 zillion reasons why I still want to get some kind of safer crossing for that zone and better lighting with the city. But it's the amount of requirements and things that go into putting a crosswalk someplace in city of TO, the statistics and the measurements and all the other things that go there, it's pretty significant. So it's not impossible in some places, but where is really more factors to go into that determination than I had expected to see.
Yeah.
Okay. So I
Okay.
think we've gotten to the end of our agenda here. I want to point out when we're planning to have our next meeting. I've got on my calendar November 18th at 6 p.m. Are we going to try for 4 p.m. kind of a deal like this one? And can we kind of tentatively just plan that at this point, or what's our game plan for this?
Supervisor Parks, do you have a?
Denise?
We'll see where we are. I guess the answer is let's see where we are. Every next meeting, I kind of say, well, we'll see where we are with COVID, and if we could do something in person, great. If not, we'll.
Well, and also we don't have any actual agenda items of any real concern and any speakers. So if this is, one of the things that could slide away in November, we understand. I mean, it is what it is. But I'd like to tentatively plan that meeting for that day, and as it gets closer, we'll reevaluate.
Right. That's kind of how I've been playing it by ear with COVID.
All right. Well, without any further comment, I'm going to close the meeting. Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I second it.
Motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Concludes the meeting there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Nice seeing everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
All have a very good evening.
This
Good
was
job.
fun.
Everybody, good seeing y'all again. Be safe. Be safe.
Thanks for all the election box info, Ms. Supervisor.
You're welcome. Thank
That's
you.
very helpful.
Great. Bye.
Thank you.
Take
Bye,
care. Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.